if you're someone who seems to find themselves stuck in a loop of making progress in a certain area of your life and then being energized and expansive but getting exhausted and then depleted and apathetic and relapsing into the same conditions that you worked so hard to get out of, then I have something to share with you that's going to be very helpful. And it might sound almost biblical, but I'm not religious, and this is a secular, universal way of understanding some concepts. So there are two ways to live. The first is hellish, and the second is heavenly. And the hellish way of living is when you repeat loops without recognizing the content of those loops is not you, it's just a pattern. The heavenly way of living takes those loops and alchemizes the pain that they have created into a certain wisdom, and it takes experience and it separates identity from experience and uses that experience as color on a palette for some greater artwork or some greater expression in your life. Quite simply, the hellish way of living is chaotic, it's disorganized. You're not learning, you're not becoming what you really are. You're spending time in this space of limbo, which feels purposeless. You wake up in the morning and your first choice is about just moving towards pleasure, getting away from pain. Now, paradoxically, when you wake up and you choose a certain degree of pain consciously, because of a love that you have for things that are beautiful and things that deserve to be nourished simply because they exist, that pain becomes your greatest ally, because to the degree the pain grows, your devotion is evidently also growing. And when your devotion exceeds any level of pain you could feel because you're so committed to honoring what is beautiful about life, the pain just becomes information for your unfolding and for your creation and for your growth. It's no longer suffering. And so there is nothing in this experience which can hurt you if your devotion is greater than any amount of pain that you could feel. Whereas without that devotion, without the honoring of life itself, any painful experience is going to be enough to scatter you into a million pieces. In the Tao, they talk about the 10,000 things, and the idea being that if you chase the 10,000 things, you're kind of lost in the world. But if you see the one thing in all things, which is the devotion, which is the process of embracing the unfolding and all that it brings, then you are discovering your true nature. The one thing is in everything. And it doesn't matter which way you go, it doesn't matter what purpose you think you're choosing, provided there is a devotion to truth, to beauty, and to the next step. So, when it comes to these loops, when it comes to these washing machines of suffering, of progress, and then inevitable crashing, depletion, you need to start moving from the avoidance of pain towards the pursuit of actualizing more beauty in your life. It may seem that they're similar because both can drive you forward in a certain direction, but the way you go forward is very different. And so your experience of yourself and your experience of the eventual outcome is also very different. We have to remember that our intention and our perception of why we're doing what we're doing colors the way we see the things that come up along the path. So when you are wearing the lens of attunement, openness to experience, devotion, tenacity, heart, that Christ-like level of embrace for all that life has to offer, that is how you will experience things. It's like walking over hot coals without being burnt. It's like being in the hot sun and just feeling the light and the warmth, but not being burnt. It's such a commitment to purity, to purification via the melting away of delusion and ignorance and everything that you've identified with that isn't you, it's that that ends up making you lighter. It's the dropping of the baggage that isn't you. When you are absolutely, with all of your heart and soul, choosing that in every moment, then absolutely nothing that comes up can harm you. So this idea, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. When you know who you are, not by name, not by role, not by validation or invalidation from others, but you know who you are because you are the space where experience passes. In that detachment, you are simultaneously connected to whatever could come up because you're not fixated on any one part. So stuckness, trauma, ongoing suffering comes from thinking that you are the content that is passing through you. Fixating on something internal or external and thinking, that is me, that is not me, that is right, that is wrong. It doesn't work that way. Everything that you experience is cycling through you, and everything that seems to be true and seems to be objective and factual about the external world is only known to be objective and only known to be external and only known to be the world through you, the subject, through you, the internal, through you, the self. And so these things are creating these cycles of meaning all the time, these cycles of identity, these cycles of understanding, these cycles of expectation. There is a constant story unfolding, and that story looks to confirm or deny itself. Am I right or am I wrong? That is the ego. Am I right or am I wrong? Is the story true or is it false? But what we're not looking at when we're trapped in this smaller view is the fact that that story only notices things that could make it right or make it wrong. It's not looking for, it's not able to see beyond itself. When you know that there is something beyond the story, though you don't know what it is, you are beginning to step into the path that is fundamentally you and your path. What you are is the unfolding, expansion, and ever-increasing complexity of life expressing physically. And so your very nature is not the thing that's passing through. Your nature is the fact that something is passing. It is the flow. It is the turning over of the stream of consciousness that is you. It's nothing that you find in the stream. So the story itself is not as important as the fact that there is a story being told, that there is a life being experienced, that there is sensation passing, that there is a world that's unfolding through your internal, external feedback view. The way you meet that passing, that momentary, temporal, limited, spatial, human condition that is passing, coming and going, being born and dying, the way you meet that is everything. The who that you are as you meet the things that you are not is everything. Put another way, the who that you are as you experience these things that are part of you and yours but not you is everything. You don't need to know the right answer. You don't need to know the next step. You just need to know that what you're seeing is a limited perspective. And as soon as you notice the limitation, you have enough detachment to reflect, to be curious, to watch, and to sit in the space of potential for a different choice. Once you see that separation, you are now connected to options beyond that limitation. Though you don't know how to define them, though you don't yet feel them as familiar identities, you are now connected to a potential which exists outside of the loop. And simply by being aware of that and remaining aware of that, you can begin to open yourself to seeing new things and experiencing similar events in a new way, having a different response to similar scenarios. That is the definition of learning. That is the unfolding. That is the exit of the karmic wheel. And that is the most rewarding thing that you can do and devote yourself to. So this conversation about escaping loops is more of a conversation about learning who it is who's watching the loop. The conversation about why you're suffering is less important than the fact that you lean in and you welcome and embrace whatever suffering already is here, rather than trying to tell yourself it doesn't exist. The conversation is not about minimizing pain or avoiding bad things happening in your life. The conversation is about living in such a way that even if the pain increased, there would still be some form of meaning. So heaven and hell are experiences you have in the now, and what sets them apart is the way you meet the loop, the way you meet the suffering, the way you meet that thing that seems so frustratingly familiar that you just can't stand to look at it again. Can you remember who you are? And in remembering, notice the space that is arising for a different response in the face of the same circumstances. If you can, and you can because space is what you are, awareness is the way you permeate the world that is permeating you. If you can recognize that, then there's always room for a gentler adjustment, different way of being, something spontaneous, something that doesn't make sense to the old you, something that feels good, but you don't know why. Be open to this. Be open to the quietest suggestion of life carving a new path as it passes through.